Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith along with
Ivan Ozerets
and Dave Anderson. Dave, thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to be here.
We're going to talk doubles. Let's go with doubles. Dave, what comes to your mind with doubles? What's the first thing you want to share with listeners?
There's 4 people, and I think that doubles needs to be resuscitated and brought back to life all around the country, from the pro game all the way down to junior tennis. I think it's a great sport. It's a great part of our sport and allows the team aspect and builds so many skills to round tennis players out that if you just are exclusively playing singles, it's hard to gather some of those skills, at least at the rate you could if you mix in doubles. And I'm a huge doubles fanatic, as I know you guys are, and just hoping that it can not only stay alive, but come back stronger than ever.
Actually, when you say 4 people, I know Vic would, back in the day, Braden with educational tapes, singles is played with 2 people. Doubles is played with 4 people. You cannot play doubles with 26 people. And he showed 26 people scram around the tennis court. But there used to be a drill. It wasn't an official part of the sport. Canadian doubles. It's only 3 players.
Yeah.
2 against 1. And having taught a lot of tennis in Canada, I would say the reason they call it Canadian doubles is there's only 3 players in Canada. You can't say that anymore. There's a tape that I was given and told not to share with anyone, and I never did. But it was John McEnroe talking to the USTA coaches several years ago. And McEnroe, being McEnroe, said, I can take it if Canada is developing more hockey players than the U.S., but I can't take it if Canada is developing more tennis players in the U.S. But anyway, 3-player doubles. Yeah, 4. Let's go with roles and responsibilities. Let's go with the server. What do you think their roles and responsibilities are, Dave?
Well, I mean, the stats really, and everything is based on levels, but stats really show that getting your first serve in doubles is just a huge priority. I kind of joke with our kids in the academy because, they all have the hand signals and doing everything, and then you ask them to hit a hula hoop with a ball and they're not even near it. And I think that the server, when up to the line, and the partner of the server dictating where the service should go, boy, it really helps when the server can not only get it in, but hit targets, hit their spots. It's something George Goldoff always talks about with the kids when he's back. You got to be able to hit your spots, and not everybody's going to have a 125-mile-an-hour bomb, but hitting your spots can go a long way. And, the server, after they've executed their serve, we mandate that the kids learn to serve and volley and make their transition into the net to join their partner to build the wall.
I have to say this while we're talking about doubles, Rafael Opelka, and there's always 2 sides to the story, but just briefly, the extremely tall player, he's had some tough times with injuries, but I think, he's cracked top 30 in the past, so obviously he can play. But I remember watching him play back when the USTA was in Boca. He was in the 12s, and you just knew then he was going to be a giraffe. He was going to be a big guy. And every time, his name comes up and downplaying doubles, you would never convince me otherwise that he'd be a better singles player if he grew up, playing doubles the right way. I tell people all the time, the responsibilities of the server, if you can make 2 shots, if you can make your first serve and make your first volley, and, you mentioned hand signals and different formations that players use. I think teaching basic doubles is just like teaching basic stroke production. It's got to go slow, you got to be simple, and, we like to have the drill done where no poaching. Automatic return cross court, automatic volley cross court, then play it out. So they can just get to the point where can they hit a body serve, come in, split step, take the first volley back cross court. Form a wall up at the net. Like, what are your goals? The goal is to gain control of the net, force the other team to hit up. And I think that's where people, I know in the beginning of these podcasts, we certainly talked about doubles, but just to come back and talk about it again, we always tell people you need two things to be a serve and volleyer. You need a serve and you need a volley. And if you don't serve and volley, you don't serve and volley. I love how Joel Trucker corrected me, said, don't call going to the net a risk. It's an investment. Go up and make the right mistake. Many times what happens at all levels, right from the grassroots level, is the superior athletes win. They can have an inferior system, but they win. So when he's not confusing, he's totally confusing. With one of our players won 9 gold doubles coming up, and her dad told me that we should just run a camp just for doubles. Well, I said, that's great in theory, but you got to teach people how to serve. You got to teach people how to volley. You can't just say, okay, I'm a doubles specialist. As far as an instructor, I'm just going to teach doubles. You have to teach people to hit the ball.
It's something that I think is missed in regard to people that are maybe looking outside in at what we try to do, and that the tactics are dictated by the technique. And, it's easy to overlook that. And so we're trying to build technique that allows for tactical options on everything.
Yeah. With, the serve, little kid tennis, obviously you're not going to serve people off the court, but you divide the court in half, 36 feet. So you come up to the net and one's arm is about the same length as the racket. So the racket's 27 inches. So just say the racket's 2 feet, arm's 2 feet, that's 4 feet. You make a diagonal step after you split step, that's 7 feet. 4 plus the 3-foot stride, 3-foot step. So it's 7 feet either way, that's 14 feet. If you got an aggressive partner, and most people early on when they're up at the net, they're hiding in the alley. They're not really out in the middle. What you want to do when you're the partner of the net person is you draw an X in the box and you stand a little bit behind the center of the X. And then when you hear the sound of the serve, that's when you make a split step, because you don't want to just be standing flat-footed. You want to be moving so you can make a better reactive play. With kids hand signaling and kids using formations, I think the sooner they're exposed to that, the better. But I've said before that, like say D3 men's tennis, the last time I was nationals, 2 years ago in person, almost every court was using the I formation. Not the modified ab, but just coming back to Tiriac playing with Vilas, where Vilas is in his 20s and he gets down low. Tiriac didn't go to that position when it was his turn to serve. Then with the I formation, the server is going to go, the returner is going to go to the right or to the left. You mentioned tactics. It's like, say, a right-handed player in the deuce court, when they're going to poach, which means hunt another person's territory, they're going to intercept the incoming cross court that's not good enough. And if they're hanging on to a really strong continental grip, they have to make a big wrist adjustment to make the volley. So simplicity, if somebody has the ready position and their elbows are out and they turn and almost a continental grip, then where are they aiming? Just a knowledge, I'm going to aim at the right-hander's right hip. High-level doubles, most points end as a forced air. But the mechanics of a 12-year-old, mechanics of a 14-year-old on the serve, boys or girls for the most part, they're not hitting big serves, but do they have the mechanics? Is there going to be a positive to their serve? When you hit a serve, singles, for example, you can hit an ace, it can be a service winner, or they're going to hit a weak return. And, the person at the net's called the cleanup person. Years ago, and the server would stand halfway between the hash mark and the outside of the court. Gonzalez stood right by the hash mark, and he would serve to the backhand. Back in his day, most backhands were one-handers. and almost all players were one-handed. And then he would just go to the, veer off to the net post to the right, because a Braden is, if you want to serve where you're going to force your opponent to hit the higher and longer return. Vic would say, can they bend the ball? I mean, can they get that ball up and down over the net and make a person hit a low volley? So where you position yourself on the baseline, the split step coming in, the way old school tennis teaching to come in and split step is like kids years ago. Maybe kids today wouldn't know what that means, be on the sidewalk playing hopscotch. But it's been proven in research when people make a split step many times, if it's a right-handed player moving it to the right, when they split, they're only landing on one foot. It's veered out to the right and they just move, because they want to come to that spontaneous organization of their feet so they can change direction. So many times people come in, they don't split step and they get past and they go, great shot. They can't turn the corner because they don't make that initial split step. So you do go to the net in stages. You can't just serve and charge in. Now, granted, if people have a fantastic serve, you could do that. Roles and responsibilities of the server. Anything else, guys?
That's a key thing you said about where the server positions themselves on the baseline. And there's definitely been more change in that. You see it. I mean, the players are much nearer to the center mark. You watch a lot of junior players, they're out near the single sideline. And, especially in the ad court, so they can get the first ball off the forehand. Because they have no intentions of going in. You don't see a lot of diversity in the positioning as to where the serve is coming from.
The listeners, Dave mentioned George Goldoff. He was a guest on our podcast. His name comes up quite a bit. Excellent junior player. I think he was ranked 1, ranked very high in the 18s. He played at Texas. And he played a few years on the future circuit, but it was, 7 years in Tibet. He's been at least 7 months or more with us. And that's a think tank, the immersion days. So he's talking about your students hitting targets. I remember you and I spent a lot of time with Robbie Seguzo, who was number 1 in the world for 5 years. And with the late Ken Flack, they would hand signal, where's the serve going? And then are you going to poach, stay, or fake when you're the net person? And, it's a fun story where I was in Germany and ended up being a guest of the Seguzo brothers and staying with the Davis Cup team. And Mark Hamlin, who I grew up with, he's on the other side of the stadium. I was just sitting courtside. I didn't have a speaking part. But Hamlin starts pointing with his umbrella. And it just took me a couple of minutes at the most to pick up that they were signaling off the signal. So they had the German flag, in Davis Cup, they have the little flags, German flag and the U.S. flag. So they knew where the serve was going. And I remember Arthur Ashe being so quiet. And so Arthur said they switched sides. Tiriac put this whole thing together. It was Gunter Bosch was the one in one side. So 11,000 Germans screaming in Hamburg. And so nice a guy Arthur Ashe. So he says, oh, guys, don't worry about it. They're only doing it on one side. I'm going, no way. And Pam Shriver said about Tiriac, he could say, I'm innocent in 14 different languages. So, so I was the one standing up because once, and it was on ESPN and this and that. So I remember it was Jürgen Fassbender. I just started going first row, second row, third row. Then I found Fassbender, stand up, and I'm pointing to Fassbender, and he was doing the same thing. And that was my time to speak. And I remember just saying, guys, just do it verbally. Just tell each other verbally what you're going to do. And the players do that all the time. I like how McEnroe, the players come together. They just lost a point and they give each other the high five. And McEnroe's going, I can't stand that. I can't stand that. But yeah, I think most people, when they're serving at a certain level, they're just hoping to get the ball in the box. I do think that young kids, they're better off just trying to get a high percentage of first serves in. It's almost like, hey, not until it's a green light point. They try to do too much with the serve. Just have really good mechanics. And then, because if you do that, because you want to practice volleying. That's where superior players playing with superior skills. They're playing people with inferior skills. They're tennis IQ, tennis EQ, emotional quotient. They just don't understand. They're banging balls against some lesser player, and they're thinking, "Mom, I'm hitting with the wrong player," and they can't make the practice work. We're telling people all the time: play one bounce doubles, play partner doubles, play ghost doubles, where it's just diagonal cross court doubles. But yeah, you certainly when you're up at the net, where that serve's going. That's a big advantage to the person at the net. You get two righties playing that deuce court, hitting inside out. That's the toughest return. With Braden's always saying that the deuce court player makes the ad court player famous, because the deuce court player, theoretically, they'll take more returns. So if Dave, you and your partner play 5 points, you're in the deuce court, you take 3, your partner takes 2. So next time it comes back to returning, you're taking return number 4, your partner's still at 2. And then this is where people...
Which is why I play the ad court.
So, but let me finish on the Bradenisms, the Braden study. So 85% of players, give or take, are right-handed. 85% of players have been taught a strong continental grip, and the racket faces the deuce court. And then 85% of players right-handed, and they're running around their backhand. They're pulling it horizontally across their body, and the ball goes to the deuce court. So in the deuce court will determine whether you're ad in or ad out. But all the way up to the macho male ego playing mixed doubles, it's amazing how many times they have the woman in the deuce court. But you really, kids listening to this, parents listening to this, you want your child to play both boxes, the right and the left. Typically what happens is the better player is put in the ad court. That's going to be ad in, ad out. We need the best player in the ad court. So a lot of players go down the road. I mean, there's many things. They don't learn to serve and volley, but they just are always playing the ad court. So you really want to play both courts. When you and I were together, we were on this tennis team, and to form a lineup, we had challenge matches playing ghost doubles. All right, we're gonna have challenge matches to the deuce court, challenge matches to the ad court. You probably could name those 3 Swedes that we were working with. They were playing one up, one back, and I said, Swedes never been in a war, but it's going to happen. You have to serve and volley. Ed Krass was on the podcast with his game, which one-on-one doubles. I think every tennis court in America should have the blended line that goes all the way down the middle. It's a crisis. It's a crisis. I mean, doubles is becoming a lost art. Okay, let's go roles and responsibility up at the net. I know when I played with Dave Anderson, I stood up and net. My job was to pick up the balls when he double faulted. Just kidding. Go ahead, Dave. Roles and responsibilities of the partner of the server.
Well, I mean, again, everything is certainly specific, I guess, to some degree with the levels, but, communicating, assuming players have skill sets that allow them to communicating what their intention is. You use the words cleanup guy, and that's really such a critical role of that person up there. I always tell kids anyways, I said, when they're in that particular spot in the court, I really want to just repeat in their head, I want the ball, I want the ball, I want the ball. And because I think that if they've been playing in this particular era, especially, you're seeing such a trend with, kids that are playing 12 and under doubles, and they've just started nuking the return right at the net player at the get-go to beat the volley. They don't even, because nobody's coming in off of their own serve, so they just go directly at the weaker skill set at the net player. And we just had a boy that you know well, Steve. You sent him here, Brooks Vaughn, but he was just playing a team event a week or two ago, and he went in on every serve, but on a majority of the courts, the server's partners started just going back. They were too back from the get go on the serving rolls, and so I think you have to want the ball. You have to communicate to your partner on moving. It's funny not to use my gamer, but Andreas and I, we're both pretty instinctive, so we're just like, we just put the signal there to just say go, or we don't even really use it, just to make the opponents wonder. I'll hold my hand up and he goes, got it, but he isn't even looking. And then we just do a lot of instinctive poaching, based on, reading the return, et cetera, and the other person just adapts.
So even if there's no signal, or there is a signal to say the signal's to stay, but they read it and they can go. Once they cross that white line, you switch houses. You got the deuce court house and the ad court house.
Yeah, I mean, we still make traditional poaches and that, but it's just really, it's very seldom pre-planned. I mean, we do a lot of eye, but I think that you have to want the ball in that role, and you have to have the attitude that you have a major responsibility in helping your partner hold serve. And it is amazing when you see at the higher level, when the ball is played back to that person in the initial point, and if they dump a volley, seems to have such a negative effect on the whole of that game. It's amazing, even just losing the first point. But I think that's a key role. I think that person can make a lot of servers look good or bad, depending on how active they are and how tidy they are as far as cleaning that area up.
Let's go back. Brooks Vaughn, how old is he now?
12.
Wow. His parents are so polite. They were at our place, and their older brother, Mason, who's had and is having success, they're polite. Said, he just come with his twin brother just for an hour? I said, no. They can come for a half a day or a full day. They can't come for an hour. It's the cash register a lot of times. Plus, they're just being polite, but it's like, I always like it'd be nice to give 12 5-minute lessons. And Andres has been on before. Tell our listeners quickly, give him a shout out. Andres, what's he do for
Andres Quijada. Andres Quijada. He's amazing coach. Just turned 35 on Friday. Got a lot of life experience from growing up in a difficult environment in Caracas, Venezuela. Just had a very unique path. Did manage to get an ATP point in his journey. Actually played at Tyler Junior College because he just needed to get to the U.S. Knew nothing about anything. Had to get the TOEFL part of it nailed down. But here at the club, he plays a key role, really helping to manage the high performance part of it. In addition to that, he's the primary person that does all of the social media. He's got a gift with editing and putting all that together and making it, appear on the screen in a particular way. But just a great young pro. I mean, I think that, he has an incredible future ahead of him in the business and in the industry of tennis. And he can really, he's a no nonsense guy who, says it straight, and it's not always easy to hear for parents and kids, but big time character coach.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, he basically without discipline, he doesn't even bother, messing with anything until he gets the character and discipline on point. So
that's great.
He's a good guy.
Straight shooting versus sugar coating.
Yeah.
It's becoming a lost art being a straight shooter. Telling it like it is.
What's the phrase you use, Steve? Softer pillows and
that comes from Jim Lair. They want the ice cream to be sweeter and the pillows to be softer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At 35, I remember the tease was, well, now you're 35, no one can trust you anymore, because now you're an adult. But I got him beat by a few years. I'm 7-0 but when people poach up at the net, hunting another person's territory, it's mine from net post to net post. John McEnroe. If you can get the ball from net post to net post higher than your partner, go for it. Just go. Don't hesitate. Braden, they burn you once down the line, poach on the very next ball. But people can just hit one shot and, they don't know much about doubles. They're always going for these cute angles. High level doubles, once again, almost every point ends in a forced error. I was telling Ivan and this Canadian gal today, part of my education to tennis was I was told you have to learn how to play. And I mean, I'm raw, I'm a beginner. And I was a full-fledged tennis bum for like 5 years. 5 years, 3 years. Then I went back to school for a little bit, then back. But I was in Boca as a tennis bum and proud of it. Working nights, so I could just be around tennis, hit balls all day. And the first time I played doubles with Wayne Saban, who's top 10 player in the world. So I let the ball bounce. We're both up to the net. I let it bounce, and I angled it off for a winner. And he turned, he just talked to me. We became fast buddies after that. He talked to me like a sailor. And, he's one of those guys that couldn't say sentences without the F word. And it's like, what are you doing? You don't let that ball bounce, and you don't hit to the outside. You make him look like a donut. Force him to hit up. If you're playing really good, you're going to hit lots of overheads. Robert Seguzo, he was so easygoing, but we'll get to that on the return. But I always spend a little more time with role number 2, the partner, the server. But Robbie would go crazy if someone hit a lob volley. Once in a while, yes, but at a real high level, if you hit a lob volley, that ball is coming down to your throat. When we film people, it's pet peeve number 998. The players just stand right at the service line. It's like, I'm in high chair, just feed me. They're not going to move up and back. It's a drive. 3 steps in or 2 steps in, 3 steps back. It's a drive. So close in, make it real world. But I remember back in my tennis days watching Berglund work out Borg. And when he fed him overheads, he would touch the net, and every overhead was either hit on the baseline or behind the baseline. That's how tough the feeds were. I remember during my tennis bum days, I had a green light to go hang out at Mr. Hopman's place. First time I ever saw him feed balls, it was a group of girls from the Netherlands. Doing lovely, dear. These girls weren't hitting balls, but they had so much respect for him. Everything was just out of their reach, and they're just running and gunning and just trying to get their strings on the racket. But up at the net, when people try to hit that cute shot, angle begets an angle. And the inside ball versus outside ball. If the ball goes to the outside of the player, it's an outside ball. Hit to the inside of the player. A lot of people don't realize that. When you're up at the net, and I think that's where a lot of anxiety comes from, is people don't know when he's like saying singles, they have no idea what they're trying to do when they get up there. That's where I like Jimmy Arias as a commentator. He said about Denis Shapovalov, I love how he goes to the net. But when he gets up there, he has no idea what to do. That's digressing. He spent 10 years. Andy Fitzell recently talked to Dennis and brought up Richmond Hill. Dennis did let Andy know that he liked Miran Man, but I think Richard reprimanded him too much when he was a young kid. But Tessa, the mom, she really she didn't buy into getting that elbow up and having the racket face square at the hit. So many people. We have somebody who ended up being a captain on Chuck Reese's team, and his father, on our course, Tennis Intelligence Applied, we say, well, some of you just stop this course right now because we tell you don't want to volley with a continental grip on the forehand side. But they don't know the math. But the history is interesting. Like Arthur Ashe, what a classy champion. But Rod Laver, the most humble person ever, said, poor Artie, he couldn't hit a forehand volley. Beat him 21 times in a row. And that's, Braden used to say that the better you are, the simpler the tactics. It's amazing to me how many kids, they run around their volley. They won't hit a backhand volley. They're running around it. The Shea Gupta, Malar Patel. Malar's been out to your place. I don't think Shea's been out there, but they just won a team high school title in Florida. I'll share the battle of Shea Gupta. So great family, very, very smart kid. I think he was doing calculus in kindergarten. So the ball, first of all, he doesn't go to the net. Then when he does go to the net, he runs around his backhand volley. But the battle was he didn't want to hit a two-handed volley when he was a little kid. So we had that film of Sampras. You have a better chance of learning how to hit a one-handed backhand volley by hitting a two-handed backhand volley. And because you can stabilize the racket, kids aren't strong enough. They go to they want to be like the pros too soon. I don't want to mention any names. Rick Macy. Rick used to say the USTA should have a rule against a two-handed backhand volley. And it's like, come on, at one time, Jimmy Connors, number one in the world at two-handed backhand volley. Fru McMillan, two-handed backhand volley. I was in a two-handed backhand volley because you hang on to a hockey stick. Bottom hand is continental. Top hand's Eastern. And I could hit a two-handed volley. And then I was told, no, you need to knife it. I one time was at Saddlebrook, and a young kid that I worked with, it wasn't a level 1 national, but he had won a level 2 national when he first came on the scene. But now the family's very wealthy, and they bought a house at Saddlebrook, and I'm there with some Japanese coaches. That's a side story. Is that you just did this at Bollettieri's with one coach at Bollettieri's, a couple coaches at Saddlebrook show up. They show up. They get their electronic dictionary, and you just call up, and with a name like Smith, you can get away with anything. I said my name is Steve Smith, and I've got a few coaches from Japan. So anyway, I'm there. That's why I'm there. I have no business there except for they took a check from this Japanese business tennis program. So we go to each place for 3 days. But this kid was on the center court, and they're changing his two-handed backhand volley, and they're just telling him to knife it. I was told the same thing, and I did the same thing. I mean, I was just told, no, you got to open the racket face. You got to really knife through it. Jeff Lewis, who's been a guest, I know he came to your place to visit. He's got some fun. He's got some fun videos, and what he's teaching the volley. He's got a big knife on the court. He's trying to knife the ball as it comes to him. Anything else on the partner of the server?
Yeah. What if the partner gets lobbed? What should the players do? The serving team.
Well, I always said yours. Yeah. No, really, from net post to net post, for as far as poaching, but you're responsible for your house. So, but even though, say, for example, I'm in the ad court, I'm playing with Dave, and I'm closer to the ball than he is when it's lobbed over my head, but he's looking at it on a diagonal. So I say yours, but it's my responsibility to let him know that, and you can't yell that like every time, yours. But no, that's one thing with kids who don't go to the net. They don't develop the instincts. That gal from Canada who's here, anybody's listening. I was telling her today that we were at the NCAAs watching round of 64 and 32, and I said, well, the last gal that I know of, American, she's Canadian, but Peyton Stearns. And I said, right now, my opinion, you're not rallying on Peyton Stearns. She's going to knock the racket right out of you, and she's going to hit through you because this girl's outside in on the backhand. But this gal has gone to the net since she was a little kid, and she's vertical. She can move up and back. She can jump. I don't think I did too well genetically, and I was told for ice hockey to go run long distances. I used to run 10 miles a day, jog 10 miles around this lake I grew up on. But no, you need to be able to, I think that's one way to measure an athlete. You got to be able to jump. And, that's where the courtesy lobs, these, kids go out and say, you feed me 10, I'll feed you 10. We just had a boy here from California. He's improving in leaps and bounds, but so he's 14, his sister's 11, and says, she can feed. Get up at the crack. As soon as the sun's up, you're there on the court by your house. No one's going to be there, and hit 100 overheads. Kids will play an entire tournament, not hit an overhead. And it's like, yeah, I do feel sorry for college coaches. They inherit a mess. They inherit a crisis. Kids start playing tennis when they're 8. Now they're going to college when they're 18. They played doubles for 10 years the wrong way.
Yeah.
A follow-up question: when the partner of the server says yours, what does the partner drop back to?
Go ahead, Dave.
So if I'm at the net and I call yours, yeah, you go, you're going on a diagonal, kind of the opposite of poaching. You're going to have to cover the opposite side of the house on a diagonal, maybe a temporary stop at the service line just to size up what's going on in the point, and looking to see what the other team is doing. So, if I call for help and my partner is retrieving it on my side, I'm going to go back to the service line area, assess the situation, and then either kind of hold my ground or possibly even retreat all the way back if it looks like we're really in trouble. But we have started kind of calling that over the years insurance. You own the lob over your head until you need insurance, and your partner is just an insurance policy. And you don't want to make false insurance claims because some people could easily get there, and they just never really, push themselves to read and react and make the drop that, yeah, just a temporary diagonal stop, and still most people go just laterally, as you know. They'll shift across, stay near the net position in GBP, and they're a sitting duck. But you want to make sure you drop backward on a diagonal.
Let me ask Ivan a question. Thanks, Dave. Best doubles team in the history of the game. You heard this just today, right?
Yeah. John McEnroe and anybody else.
Yeah. Peter Fleming. Peter Fleming said that, who I think he won 7 titles with McEnroe. John McEnroe and anyone else. So you got to love McEnroe where, somebody will say like the best doubles team of all time or the best doubles player of all time. And I remember watching McEnroe from behind the court, with Arthur Ashe said about McEnroe, he's just going to cut you to shreds. A nick here and a slice there. And, what he could do with the ball. Being able to, like say in Arthur Ashe, for example, his slice serve in the deuce court. If Arthur Ashe was playing, we're looking out the window, we see 3 indoor courts. Arthur Ashe could only play on 1 court. He could only play in the middle court. The mesh it's between indoor courts at a tennis club, really good players. I mean, they can't play on those courts. With
running them into it.
Yeah, let's go with the returner. Roles and responsibility. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, I think you got to go with the name, return a serve. That still is the primary objective, to get in play, returns in play, and then trying to keep the ball away from the net player, to beat the net player, and in a perfect world, to be able to get the ball down if somebody's serving and volleying. I think we were talking about this a little bit offline, and in today's tennis, to be able to take that, because so many people aren't coming in on their own serve, it actually gives a lot of opportunity to get people to just take the initiative right off the return, and be able to maybe move forward off of that and take the net over with their partner. But yeah, you got to get it in play, and you got to get it away from the net player ideally, but not at the cost of making it a low percentage shot. I think most people over exaggerate the skill sets of the net player, and they try to make the angle too acute, and they can still hit it quite a bit more through the center than they realize without really being in jeopardy.
On the men's side, going back to a one-hander, Jan Kodish, at one time he was regarded as the best returner in men's tennis. Then it was Connors, Agassi, Djokovic. Working backwards, Djokovic, not so much doubles in his career. Agassi, no. Connors, with nostalgia, he won the U.S. Open. He won Wimbledon playing doubles. A lot of people forget that. But the big time money came in, and the top guys really stopped playing doubles. I think one thing on returning is if you throw lob up early, so you let the person know at the net, they're going to hang back a little bit. They're not going to get their nose over their net. So early on to throw up a really good lob. Communicate as a returner. And one return is just bang it right at the net person. Just go right at them, and they're going to pop up a volley. But you need to communicate that. If your return is, you're playing against somebody that a really weak serve, there's three positions basically returning. We go through the different formations, but both back if you can't get the return cross court. Coming back to McEnroe, I think it was Wimbledon, the last title he won, he was playing with Michael Steek, and he finally had to say, he told Steek to come back and offset. I think the last ATP title McEnroe won was against this Swedish player who was so good.
Jared?
No. I believe he's from Växjö too, from Sweden. You'll get it in a minute, but the opposing team was using
Jonas Bjorkman.
Yeah, exactly. These are the things. But so the last they were doing eye, and McEnroe you just rip it right at the net person. Don't in doubles, really high level doubles. Instead of going around them or over them, you're better off to go through them. But so say for example, you're playing against a really weak serve, and so the partner, the returner moves in, and then you poach off of that. You're gonna hit such a great return. You're gonna get down at the net rusher's feet, and now you can poach off of the return. The other day this happened here. We have a player we're filming, and we're filming ghost doubles. We film running, throwing, basic strokes. There's so many things that we used to film. We used to film specialty shots and emergency shots. Let's see you hit a skyhook. Let's see you hit a reverse overhead. So it seems like in everything we're doing less. But so the player that is more familiar with what we do day to day said, we play some ghost doubles. He told the other person to come to the net. And I said, no. Initially, when we film, we don't say anything. Give them the test first and the lesson second. So, it was no problem. The visiting player, the first time player, he stays back. Well, our player, he stays back too. But as soon as they stay back, that's just a green light to go forward. We say it very much, when you're the server, if you can make two shots, you can form a wall up at the net. And it's very much like singles. If you make one good volley, your chances just jump up to win the point. When you're the returner, if you can just make one shot. We have a drill we call dummy doubles. And before you take the return, the partner of the returner needs to say, can you get it cross court? And if they don't do that, okay, dummy doubles, we rotate somebody in. And then if the person returning goes, yeah, I can get it cross court, we rotate again, you're out because you've said you've never played against this player. So actually in the beginning of a match, you're much better off to say, okay, we'll both stay back. If you've never played against the team you're playing against. And Braden used to say this so well, is the best way to play doubles is 2 up. Second best way to play doubles is 2 back. Worst way to play doubles is 1 up, 1 back. Most universally played 1 up, 1 back. 1 up, 1 back will only work against 1 up, 1 back. But now going to round 62, round 32, Ivan, you were at this round 32. Mm-hmm. The men's, a little bit of serve volume, but not much. It's almost all 1 up, 1 back.
Yep.
We had David Getz on. He asked me a question about doubles just yesterday. Gave him a brief answer. Then I told him I'd call him up because there's so many variables. It's not like, well, okay, it's just can answer something in 2 seconds. But when people are playing one up, one back, it's amazing how well the players hit lobs. It's just like there's another lob and topspin lobs as well. So there's always a positive, negative, negative, and a positive. The Braden line again. Your partner is serving, and you go back to the baseline, and your partner looks at you, and they're indignant, and they go, "What are you doing back here?" And you say, "I want to live." Nancy Ritchie, San Angelo, Texas, great tennis story. Small town like that. George was the dad, the coach. Cliff and Nancy became great, great players. Top 10 players in the world. And when Billie Jean King, who won 20 Wimbledon titles, played with Nancy Ritchie, she said, "Hey, you're more comfortable coming in behind the approach shot. So we'll play that way." Dave Segger's been helping us with his podcast many times at NC State. That's a hybrid, okay? They recruit players who've played doubles the wrong way for a decade, just like 99% of college coaches. And, hey, we're going to get to the net. You come in on the second ball. We're going to get them off the ground. And they're much more comfortable doing that. But for me, with college coaches, is that I'd rather lose. I'd rather lose with, freshmen playing the right way, because when they're sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and even though the doubles is just a sprint to six games in college tennis, it's still a pretty significant point. The returner, anything else on that? Roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, I got a question for the returner. When should the returner keep the net player honest? When to try to go for the line shot?
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, Steve mentioned earlier, something that I've told a lot of people to do as well over the years. In the first game to, probe, to use a little bit of that Dave Severson. And John Nallen, who was a young kid in our program, now he's a coach, probably nearing 40 now. But we used to joke about it, but the first return he got, he usually played the deuce, and he could really hit the tennis ball. He's probably 5'3", I would imagine. He went 6 in the third with Isner at Kalamazoo. And Nallen would just unload, whether it was a forehand or backhand. He'd go as hard as he could on the initial point and just send a message, even if he missed it, that, he was going to have to be respected up the line. And, I think that it's all relative to level, I think, Ivan, on that, because you're seeing people just go up the line now because they know it's going to beat the volley. I mean, but when you're playing really competent people, it's a different issue. And, I think you do, it comes down to just keeping people honest. I think, inside ball redirects are easier pulls, right, up the line. You can get away with a little bit and pull the ball up the line. So T serves in the deuce or the ad, depending on righty lefty, it'll be an easier redirect up the line. But I love that attitude that Nallen used to have, and just I'm going to keep him honest on the very first point. I played against him. He does it.
I used to have a photo of Nallen and Isner when they were at Kalamazoo. I'm sure you gave it to me, but
yeah,
David and Goliath. With you're testing your memory trivia. He played with a Texan. I know he coached Zena Garrison, Freddie McNair. Who did he play with?
Who is that?
Freddie McNair played doubles with a Texan. The Texan, he coached Zena Garrison.
Oh, yeah, Sherwood Stewart.
Look at this Anderson, huh? Man, oh man.
Sherwood Stewart from Goose Creek, Texas.
Look at this Anderson. Amazing. So, but Freddie McNair, I remember he, when he said that he would, if he poached and the returner beat him going down the line, he said he'd poach on the very next ball. He didn't want to let that person think that they had him wired. But no, I think very early, just like lobbing off the return, but going very early. And I mean, with a continental grip on the forehand volley, with Jack Kramer said that he would go back to the hotel and break furniture. He knew under pressure that Gonzalez was going cross court, right-handed player. And Gonzalez there's not enough said about Gonzalez. So such a great, great player. He turned pro very early, so he doesn't have the Wimbledons and what have you. But in Pancho Seguro, playing Big Pancho, Little Pancho, he's dropping. There's no lights on the court, and he's got a bag of balls. He's dropping the ball, running after, and he's ripping it cross court, and then he's just sprinting. And Braden said, "Why are you doing that?" A lot of people don't remember that Braden ran the tour. Joel Trucker mentions that what an education he had. It's not just the science and getting connected, getting aerial and such, but so the drawbacks of a continental grip. In most kids, they don't have the ready position. Their hands are in, and at best, all they're going to do is finesse volleys. So you go right at them, get them to pop the ball up. But I think what the problem is on both sides of that, people want to win. That's the curse. Is they want to win, and they play one up, one back, and they want to win that 2-inch trophy. It's like in the 10 and unders, everybody wants to win. Mom wants to win. Dad wants to win. The coach of the 10-year-old wants to win. We turn people off a little bit. 64 10-year-olds win and play a tournament. Who wins? One 10-year-old. That's not as mean as saying if 64 idiots play a tournament, who wins? One idiot. I love to tell people, you play tennis like little kids play soccer. The only two people know where to be are the goalies. My son Connor would get complimented on his doubles. Of course, it was a low-level pro tennis entry level, but he won like 3 weeks in a row with 3 different partners. Graydon Oliver did the same type of thing. Some of you and I helped learn how to hit a ball. And, people would say, Connor, you play doubles really well. I said, not really. I just know where to stand. And I think he could have said, well, I know where to stand, but I also know how to hang onto the racket. Hey, kid, you don't have the ready position. And when you turn, if you go to the Braden's book, Tennis for the Future, it's in Tennis 2000, and Richie Lay was the model in Tennis for the Future, and he's hanging on 2 rackets, one in his right hand, one in his left hand. The right hand, he has the elbow up raised, which is an unnatural position. In the other photo, he's got the elbow in. And what do the Aussies call it when you choke? They used to call it, it's the elbow. Freud's return to the wound concept. You're in a movie and you get frightened, and your elbows just come in. That reminds me, I was at the movie with Anderson one time. It's called Fatal Attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped up and popcorn went everywhere, and I said, I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared. What a movie. So
classic movie.
The returner, I think it's key to find out, what side you play better, deuce or ad. And then it's just like with brain typing. When you find out what your brain type is, work towards being the opposite. And you've got to work on strengths, but you have to work on weaknesses too. And kids become one-dimensional where they just stay back, but people don't think of someone being one-dimensional because they just play one side. They don't play both sides. Dave, talk about lefty-righty.
Let me ask you a question first about that, because I get asked this a lot, and I give I wouldn't say it's an educated guess at best, but on brain typing and deuce court, ad court returning, and it seems to me, in my years anyways, that, getting like an ISJ type brain type, ISTJ in the deuce, and the ESTPs in the ad. Do you have any data on that?
No, I think certainly, Nienagel's book, I think with the article that Joel Trucker and Vic, it's up on our website. J's learn how to routine. Like say Stan Smith was an ISTJ and Chris Everett, ISTJ, date myself, 2 great champions. And one was a serve and volleyer, one was a baseliner. But they learned out of routine. They just did the same thing over and over and over again. But you want to have that conservative person in the deuce court who's going to make returns. And now then you say, so you get up a point and you need a little more flair in that ad court. Players are going to be more aggressive. Players are going to go for it. But but no, I don't have, any specific data. I mean, with, they say in Need Nagel's book, John Newcomb and Tony Roach, one of the best teams ever. So if you read, and I love all the little things about tennis. So Newcomb's an ENTJ, cannot not lead. He's the CEO. But what Harry Hopman told Tony Roach, who's a real quiet guy, he said, just let Newcomb think he's the captain. Just let Newcomb think he's the quarterback. Just let Newcomb think he's the boss out there. Because it's very good to put an I and E together. But typically I's, you think about their tennis, they make balls. They're going to make that return. And so, but have the relationship side of doubles too. To put two E's together, sometimes that just doesn't work out. But it's nature versus nurture. It's predisposed. I mean, 60-40, most books will tell you that, but it's a very powerful tool. Need Nagel, didn't have the medical credentials, so some of these have pseudoscience, but that's certainly something that could be researched. It's like baseball. I didn't really like baseball, but when I was a kid, everybody played baseball. And when baseball was over, I'd get on my bike and I'd go home and shoot pucks in the driveway. And a lot of kids would just stay all day and play baseball. So I was going to be a nose picker out there, going to put me in right field because not too many balls go to right field. And it's the same thing. So brain type comes into it, but also in the end, like say, for example, Federer is an extrovert, but he could live on the backboard when he was a kid because the dream was big. The bigger the dream, the bigger the work ethic. So you don't want to put somebody in a box and say, well, but it is true. An E typically goes to the backboard and they get lonely, where an I can do something over and over and over again. But no, I think that's in picking partners is the brain type, and we have a podcast on that. It's just another tool for a tennis coach. Return of serve. Can you hit top on both sides? Vic Braden. What will happen if you're playing somebody who can hit true clean topspin on both sides and you can't? You will lose. You will finish second in a field of two. Some of these pearls of wisdom, Andy Fitzell, talking about Shea Gupta's hitting balls and Malar Patel, and Andy walks by and goes, flying saucers. I see flying saucers because they're hitting on both sides and they don't hit top on either side. This is when they were little kids. So obviously they're much, much better now. But most young kids, that's what's good about a two-tone ball. The two-tone ball you don't see so much anymore. It's just in that little kid transition balls where they have the orange ball. Well, some are orange and yellow. Mm-hmm. But those are, if that was a regular tennis ball, which that was available years ago, it was a great way to just tell if you could hit topspin. You go to a junior tournament and not one kid's hitting topspin. Really true topspin. It's like Lenny Schloss, who's a guest on the podcast, Nadal broke the code. What's the code? High over the net, topspin on both sides. Don't miss. Nadal, he was asked, how do you beat Nadal? That's easy. Don't miss and be super aggressive. Big thing with returning, better to swing fast than swing slow. You have a better chance of having the racket face be aligned properly at the hit if you swing fast. But a lot of kids they grow up not realizing they can't return because they're playing against people who don't want to poach. I mean, all you have to do is go to a tournament. We were watching these kids, and I mean, hats off to these players playing in the round of 64, 32, men and women went into Virginia to watch. And it's almost like they're waving their arms, singles and doubles. I mean, that ball is floating up there like a wounded duck, and they're not taking it out of the air. And there's a Scandinavian kid, hey, you're 6'3". It's a green light point. It's like the late Dave Schneider said about Scott Stewart, who you mentioned last week. Because he played a lot of one-up, one-back doubles. And that kid was trained when he was young with his character, watch out world. And I remember Dave Schneider said, can't he just spin the serve in, go up and just poke one volley? But back in the day, if you didn't go to the net, it was looked at in a completely different manner. For me, growing up in ice hockey, the puck goes in the corner. You're going to get there first, and you're going to get checked into the boards. That's your reward. You're going to get to the puck first, and you're going to move the puck. but you're going to get hit. And, if you don't go to the net, to me, it's like that puck's in the corner. I'm not going in after it. It's like the famous quarterback. There was a fumble and he just kind of looked at it. I think it was in the Super Bowl. I have to trivia. I don't know. We don't want to pick on that quarterback. We'll just skip over that. But, it's like, no, it's a fumble. You just dive head first for that fumble. Return short and compact. The simpler the swing, the better. Simplification is sophistication. Mentioning going back from Djokovic to Agassi to Connors to Kodish. I mean, they all had short, compact returns. And take the ball early. People should live on a backboard. You want to have a great return serve, live on a backboard. Because when you bang, you want to have great strokes. Backboard initially can be the worst way to practice. But if you have short, compact swings and you hit against the backboard, it's like the ball's going to the net and coming back, going to the net, coming back. So it just doubles footwork. Just doubles footwork.
And you want to stay away from slicing the return as a returner in doubles, correct?
Go ahead, Dave.
Me personally, no. I mean, I wouldn't be able to hit a return then. Yeah, I mean it. I think the connotation of the word slice. Steve used the word short and compact. I mean, you can really from a really good organized ready position. We'll tell the kids make a Nike swoosh, or it's essentially what we refer to as tabletop. But you can really drive the ball. It can really do damage and get it from there. I think that slice where the backspin and making the ball float, and that's at a certain level that's going to be up. But you can play a pretty aggressive blocking motion with a very compact swing and get the job done pretty well. I mean the Christmas tree and the ornaments, right? And I think that you got to have the foundation, the Christmas tree first. But most people don't have that secondary move off of the uniturn where they have that option to play kind of a flat drive. And again, going back to kind of misunderstanding why we'll have kids do two-handed, to play conventional volleys in the midcourt. I mean, there's so many things that just relate into the return of serve through that ready position being organized and then just coiling the body and then just, letting the racket go right across the table. But yeah, you can, I think you can hit effective returns that way and almost absorb the power of the server. But slicing and making that, downward calculation, I think that it has a very limited shelf life.
Tennis history, tennis math. Gonzalez and Rosewell. So someone says Rosewell's famous slice backhand, and Gonzalez, what slice backhand? He hit his flat as pancake. So then Uncle Vic, his racket face at the impact point was never tilted more than 7 degrees. You think of Edberg, and I think that's where one problem with tennis today is that we need to be students of the game. I love the Einstein quote: "If you don't know the history of your subject, you don't know your subject." I mean, Edberg, and how he could hit a backhand volley, but how he could hit a backhand one-hander, short, compact. Okay, he's just going to let it free fall, go underneath. Or like you say in Nike swoosh, he just takes that ball early and he just nails it. I think yourself playing you're 30, Andres is 35 and you're 60, right? Give or take.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a little faster than you still? A little bit?
I don't know. I'm not going to die easy.
But
I mean, I can still move.
But to get back to Ivan's question, I think Jacobson years ago, studying tennis is, and it depends on growth spurt, but some 14-year-olds are shaving on the boys' side, They're just they got a deep voice. They're just in their 40s, and some kids are not going to be shaving for another 10 years when they're in the same age group. But with it just it has to be looked at. So when is tennis defensive and when is it offensive? The listeners, there's a big difference between little kid tennis and big kid tennis. But the problem we have is big kids are playing like little kids. They're playing one up, one back doubles, and they're never going to the net, and it's rampant. And I think that's with the college coaches. I mean, is a college coach going to recruit a player and go, I'm going to develop this player? Or they're going to say, well, maybe they're not going to play as a freshman. And then, the seven.
Well, it makes me think too, Steve, of the team Tiley was, when we did the 10-year plan with Tiley's plan up there and talked about his teams and the level that they played doubles at and the number of players that ended up, having careers or mini careers out on the tour as doubles players.
Yeah, with Jeff Lasky and Brian Wilson. They were young guys. But, I have to look back. Okay, these guys were, kids are in college, 18, 19, 20 years old. I think this is true, but I think most college coaches would agree with this. When a kid is this last semester of senior year, that's when they really start to understand college tennis. I've done so many things with college programs over the years. You can just guess the freshman. You just walk in the building, you can just guess who the freshman is. But yeah, so I was at a tournament. I was their chaperone, their chauffeur. So Lasky and Wilson. In fact, I talked to Jeremy Wirtz one day. He reminded me that Wilson is your neighbor. He's teaching at T-Bar M, Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
Not of the Beach Boys, but of Illinois tennis. And they were playing a finals. It was the first time they won, and they were really excited. It was a Futures in Clearwater. And I went inside and watched Michael Russell go 5 sets with. I said, I'm not watching you guys. These guys are playing one up, one back doubles. And they were all pumped up, and it wasn't like, well, hey guys, okay, great, And they thought at that time I had a pool with a basketball hoop at each end, and they thought they were going to go back and play basketball. But you guys both lost to Jesse Witten. He's still in high school. We're going straight to the tennis courts to practice. But no, Tiley, he certainly with his 7 years with us, and then when he went in, they did very well with doubles. Control the middle. You've got to be that wall up at the net. Be managed with stats. Let's go with the most difficult one, probably, to go through all the roles and responsibilities. More decisions to be made if you're the partner of the returner. Why don't you go with that one?
Yeah, the partner of the returner. We on our big tennis court whiteboard or whatever it is called. When I line the rackets up every day when somebody has been playing with them, and we start the person in the traditional sense of where they are at the service line, waiting to be reactive according to what kind of return has been hit. But there's just so many roles that player can assume, like you'd mentioned, dropping back, which can really help nullify some big serving or an active poaching partner, and it can help clear the mind of your partner on the return to just feel like they don't have such a narrow hitting lane. I always think of Dennis Vandermeer in the hot seat, and how that player is going to have to, be prepared to do a lot of moving, a lot of fluctuating based on what's going on. They're kind of that player without the puck or without the ball, in basketball or hockey, and they have a lot of things that they have to be processing, and I feel like that person determines so much. I'm always telling our kids, that third ball, and that person, if they're doing their job, that third ball should be gone many times, and as you know, in today's world, it isn't. but it's I'll tell you who's getting pretty good at that is, you mentioned Brooks Vaughn, but Mason Vaughn's getting pretty competent at cleaning up in that role too. Because there is poaching, there is similarities to having the same role as a server's partner. But I think there's a lot of decision making that has to happen.
One thing with you probably were on the court being one of the demonstrators, but Jim Verdick comes to Tyler Junior College, and he was a football coach. He was a football player. He was in the Rose Bowl. People need to go back and listen to our podcast on Jim Verdick, and then we had his son Doug, movie that is. And I mean, Jim Verdick, people in college tennis, they should go back and get all the freshmen should read the letter. All the coaches that have incoming freshmen should read the letter that Doug Verdick read on our podcast. But a football coach is going to do it over and over and over again to play. We're going to run this play over and over and over again. And you could be out on the court and say, okay, it's just going to be serve, return, no poaching, and volley. And, then you quickly rotate so everybody's getting reps in and say, no, the serve's got to go in and the return's got to be with topspin and the volley's got to be away from the net person, and just do that 3 shots over and over and over again. And in the movie Hoosiers, practice is not designed for your pleasure, it's designed for your improvement. So the reps to run something over and over again. I did this, a couple of weeks ago. I had a group of kids. They're all pretty much the same level. They all came here with good technique. They're part of the network, and we for an entire morning. That's a Harry Hopman thing. We're doing this drill for 3 hours. And, football players over and over and over again. Don Shula, the late Don Shula, and he's a coach of. I have to get it right, but he was in Baltimore, but then he was in Miami, and he was the first coach that he rented the top floor of a parking lot in a hotel. So the team stay in the hotel. Now they do it in big conference rooms. So under the lights, nobody's parking on that top floor. The specialty teams over here, the offense is here, the defense is here. The guys are just wearing blue jeans, and there's no football, no pads, no opponents are just going over play after play after play. Like, what's their assignment? Ivan has watched a lot of hockey with me, going on 3 years here. And in hockey, you platoon every 45 seconds, and you go to the bench, and you say, if you did something wrong, you're told. You look straight ahead, no eye contact. A little profanity, the coach just tells you. But Verdick, he coached doubles that way. So I remember it was on that indoor setting we had at Tyler Junior College, and he did it every time, put a huge wastebasket. What you're calling the hot seat, where you got to plug up the middle. And, so when you're poaching, you're going to go right at their right hip, right to the middle. Big garbage can. Can you just hit that spot? You hear about people hitting spots as far as serving, but like a Raven Clausen, who was with us for 4.5 years. Unfortunately, he was the one to lose a serve, 5th set, Wimbledon. We're pulling for him, a guy who ran our dollar clinic. And, so he's not trying to bang the volley to Jack Sock. He's trying to hit a 3/4 court volley, and it's going to be low because that forehand of his is so hard to read, it's so lethal. I find that most kids were getting away from the partner of the returner perhaps, but I'd say most kids, they just try to overhit the volley. Make the volley, form a wall up at the net. And, now we ask kids, okay, where's the green zone? They don't know. Where's GVP? They don't know. We have a lot of kids coming from this one club in Canada. There were Richard Hernandez, a classmate of yours. You and I went there to help him make videos for like 100 people when he was first starting out. So these kids come here and but they don't know the content. They hit the ball really well, but the reason they don't know the content, because in Canada they have long winters. They will take the kids go to a 2-hour class, but the coaches stay and teach another 2-hour class. So we don't do it that way. We have people. It's an immersion day, And like, what are you trying to do with the ball? What's your goal here? And, we ask kids a couple key questions, like say aggressive air margin. Bill Jacobson, if you win 2 out of 3, you're dominating. That's a D in school, 66%, but it's an A plus. 2 out of 3 turns into 4 out of 6, 8 out of 12, 16 out of 24. This kind of thing. If I had a penny for every time I said that, but the same thing in doubles. If you can win 2 out of 3 points, you're going to hold serve. So make the right mistake. Don't make the wrong mistake. The young gal from that club, it's a fun story. She was invited to represent Canada in England, and then the mom was a guest on our podcast. They turned down that opportunity. Just stay home and learn how to play. People are bopping and shopping, and all the money being spent. We're not doing too well with U.S. tennis. Kids did so much better when they didn't play so many events. I do think that comes down to we tell people, parents especially, it's more logical to be the late bloomer than the teenage sensation. Like in Alcaraz. The late Andy Brandy said before he passed away here recently, he said, Alcaraz's game was right. He was almost like a done deal. He could already play. And IMG, as the story goes, sponsored him and said we're going to take a penny until he turned 20. But you think, okay, the clay, the older brother, the dad was top 30 in Spain, the red clay. Like, how do people get so good? But just run your own race. I mean, learn to play doubles the right way. I mean, when we coach junior college, coaches used to say, well, we only have 2 years. No, we're going to change it in 2 hours, not 2 years. But if someone comes in as a freshman and they play 1-up, 1-back doubles and they leave and they play 1-up, 1-back doubles, that's because the coach realizes that my kid's ground strokes are better than my opponent's volleys. But the hype on, okay, everybody's going to go on to play college tennis. I think we can wrap this up with some drills, but let's spend a little more time on the partner of the returner.
Yeah, question for me. Where should the partner of the returner, of course, we mentioned the partner of the returner can assume many roles, but where should they generally be looking? Where should they generally be standing? And does it change whether it's a first or second serve?
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I think, I think it's situational, or it's specific to who's on the side with you. I mean, I literally tell every person I've ever played with in the last 20 years, just stay back in the beginning. It takes me time to be able to pick up on the return, and I like them usually, my partners, and I don't want them to get hurt. So I just say, just come back. But if I'm playing with Andreas, I mean, he's going to rocket the ball through the court, and I'm going to be able to pick a lot of volleys out. So I have no problem even being inside of the service line a little bit and then closing hard once it gets past the net player. And so I think I think to assume the standard position that, that doubles, that we all kind of perceive it, if you're the partner of the returner, to be right around the service line and right in there. And that works too. But I feel that especially in teaching club doubles, it's funny, not really related to the juniors, but with the club doubles, when I tell some of the people, like my wife, just go ahead and go back when your partner's, returning, and she feels like I've just insulted her. That it's like I'm telling her she's no good and that she's only a defensive player. And I told her when she began in COVID, I said, hey, there are very few people at Brookhaven that want to hit an overhead, and men or women of all levels, and learn to lob, if you want to win, because overheads are just so underdeveloped. So I don't know that there's a specific answer to that. I think everything is situational, but it's a fun role. It's actually my favorite role, being the returner's partner. and just being able to adapt and kind of go with the point. One thing that we do a lot of, that we have a lot of fun with, is just kind of putting the returner's partner in motion. Maybe they start back, but there's a communication between us that, even with the kids, we try to teach that, when the server goes into their toss, just run up. And so you might begin at the baseline, but your whole intent is, once the toss goes up, or right as they go into their motion, you're gonna get in really tight, just to give different looks. I think, it's in the rules, and it's not like it's gamesmanship. It's just trying to keep people off balance.
No, it's good to gauge your opponent, to measure your opponent. One thing about staying back, both players back on the return. First of all, you throw up the lob, and then if you try to return cross court, you don't get it away from the net person. You have a better chance to make a play. But if you're in the conventional one up, one back position, and your partner doesn't get the return cross court, then you have less time to play off the player's volley. With I don't think many people realize that their opponents have palm up serves. We film a lot of kids that have been part of the curriculum. They come in here to visit several times a year, and we film them throwing, and they'll have a palm down serve, but they don't have a palm down throw. And they're not playing baseball, softball, wiffle ball. I remember doing this years ago. I was invited to Alta. Someone who well, David Weiss, was teaching in Atlanta, and someone said, "Hey, where'd you learn these group dynamic skills?" And Weiss, being very humble, said, "Yeah, I know this guy." So I was the guy. So I went to Atlanta many times to work with Alta teams. If you're playing, like, say, 2-5 tennis and you want to win, you put the racket in the tray position on the serve. You put your racket palm up. You get not a forehand grip, but a little closer to a semi-western, and you just pop the ball on the court. You're not missing your first serve and second serve. You're going in, and then what you do is both players stay back, and very good chance you have say two right-handers. So one right-hander stands on the center mark, and the other right-hander stands at the outside of the court. And all you do is tap your serve in and throw up lobs. You just totally take the role of the spoiler. If you really want to, at the lowest level, if you really want to win. But let's go over a few drills with doubles. I already mentioned ghost doubles, one-on-one, cross-court diagonal doubles, one-bounce doubles, dummy doubles, where, you're ready to start the point, you ask people questions, and they're standing in the wrong place, you're out. And you get 6 people, and they just keep rotating on the court. And sometimes you go, seriously, 10, 12 mistakes before you can even play a point. Then when they do play a point, you say freeze. We call that TV doubles, freeze. And then you go over, this is the crime. This is where you went. And I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but most people play doubles like I speak German. I can't say 2 words, maybe not even one, without making a mistake. The Braden drill is poach on every ball. You can play doubles, you got to poach on every ball. You can do it just the opposite way. Return goes cross court, you poach on everything. And it is true that a lot of players for many years, and you think about club tennis, when they're at the net, they're hoping the ball doesn't come to them. But it should be just the opposite. What other drills come to your mind, guys?
Heads up doubles?
Yeah, that's where the server goes in, and then you just quickly put another ball in play. You have to be very careful, but keep the ball down low. So you could do it with, like 3, you're going to play 3 points per time at the net. Scramble doubles, where, as soon as the point's over, and I like to feed the ball to the person who misses. And I tell somebody else, one of the 4 players, to keep score, because I want to make sure no one's going to trip on a tennis ball. Safety first. But scramble doubles. And then it becomes very athletic, and they have to crisscross and up and back. And initially, though, they need to be taught how to hit the ball. Dave, why don't you talk about the drill you do, 3-zone, but also...
I think I was thinking literally of Connor.
Okay, but then also the ones where we're on the side, which is similar to 3-zone, same purpose, but I'll go. You do 3-zone. I go to the middle, to the middle, to the middle. Go ahead, 3-zone. Tell us about that.
Three zone doubles attack. We'll have 2 players at the mountain, both back. Coach is feeding in from that side, and then 4 players on the other side coming in 2 at a time. And the only way they advance to the mountain is by completing a point really in all 3 zones. So they initially come in off an approach shot. And if they win that zone, then they have to both line up at the service line quickly and play a first volley. And if they both win that, at that point, then they have to touch a net and execute an overhead. And it is amazing how hard it is for people to get 3 consecutive points in those 3 different zones and shots. And what I've liked to do over the years is to have the kids feed it too, and to develop racket awareness. And I feel kids just overall don't feed enough balls. So I mean, it's a great drill for a lot of kids on the courts. It done properly, we do it where when you lose the point, they have to. If you're on the side trying to get to the mountain, if you lose a point, you have to quickly shift to the outside of the court, touch the net post, and backpedal to the back fence and switch sides. And it can be a very good physical workout as well as execution of a lot of shots.
One thing about 3-zone, to me, it's a fun drill. Some college teams do it. They have a lot of fun during the warm-up. Get the team relaxed and upbeat. I think a lot of programs do it at the very end, and it looks like so much fun. And that's a program that's marketing to the child. So I've traveled as a consultant, and indoor courts. It's a totally indoor program. It's like people are snowed in Ohio or Illinois, wherever it is, in Ontario, and they bring everybody to one court, and everybody's at the rah-rah, and all these courts are empty. I grew up with like a sheet of ice was so expensive, and table conversation in the family I grew up in, it was how well does the coach use that sheet of ice. So if you go to Brookhaven and watch kids do it, it's a fun drill because the kids can hit the ball. But if you can't hit the ball, it's just like organized chaos. But they're having fun, and it's just not productive. But if they've done the technical work, with to the middle, you could do it without a feeder. So you probably do it, Dave, where you put 10 balls up at the net on one side, 10 balls on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So you run up, you grab the ball, you backpedal the service line. You got to feed it to the middle. You hit the ground stroke to the middle, volley to the middle, then you play it out. And you stay at the net as long as you win the point. But you got to move up and back. You run up to get a ball, you come back. Even if you're not the one getting the ball, you run up and come back. And, you can add variables like, okay, you can run to the fence, but just run. But in doing that, the first team that gets rid of 10 balls wins. But it's the first 3 shots: feed to the middle, ground stroke to the middle, volley to the middle, play it out. I love that drill.
It's a fun drill to do in a King of the Mountain format, and then switch partners when you rotate to the courts too. You really find out, adaptability, and we do that a lot where that exact drill, we call it aerobic doubles, but same drill. And it's fun when because the same people essentially end up near that mountain court all the time.
Yeah. So listeners, when Dave says, up the river, down the river, King of the Mountain, if you win, you move up; you lose, you move down. A side note to that, I've never had a junior player ask me, how do you decide who moves to what side, like the sun, the wind? But senior players, they're in tune with that. Hey, when you move up and down, how do you spin for side? But here's something away from doubles, but the spider drill, you can get courts, so you get 4 or 5 courts in a row, and on each side of the net, you put the 5 balls, and you say, ready, go. And whoever does the spider, you get online and watch Switek do the spider drill. And whoever does it the fastest moves up a court, down a court. But yeah, you want to bring competition into it. What were you going to say about Connor and doubles?
No, well, Connor, that was, he asked almost on a daily basis, what time is free zone? I don't do it a lot anymore with adults, and we do it inside of the academy. But free zone with the adults here, and Connor was pretty much a legend. Every adult wanted to be his partner, and he could hit any shot in the book, and went way out of his way to hit a tweener or any trick shot. But yeah, he loved that drill.
For our listeners, my son Connor, he was 2 in the 18s. It doesn't mean he was 2 because obviously a lot of kids would be beyond the USTA ranking and playing ITF or ATP events. But so that was, if he had to put a bio together, he was an All-American. So transferred to Ohio State. Ohio State, that really helped him with his movement. But he played doubles. In singles, he got to be 200 in the world. But with doubles, granted he was very young, but we were on our way to the U.S. Open. We were with Raven Clausen, who had a bad go with injuries, 3 knee operations. I thought he was done. From Minnesota, transferred from Ball State to Gustavus Adolphus, Eric Buderak. So Eric Buderak, he gives Raven a shot. He plays doubles with Raven. He had the magical run to the Australian Open final. But so Connor played for 3 years, and there was an opportunity that was just exploratory that Connor would travel with this Indian player, and he'd be a player coach, and they would play doubles. Because to specialize in doubles, it's hard to, I tell parents, okay, you want to know a little bit about junior tennis? Okay, a little bit about college tennis, pro tennis. It's very difficult if you want to play doubles with somebody and say either you're qualifying or they're not qualifying. You're main draw, they're not main draw. But I remember Connor saying to me, he was very young, he said, and Clausen was at the table, he goes, I don't want to just play challenger doubles. And he also said that the main guys on the tour, Connor, for example, was around being in Tampa and practicing Saddlebrook and being a practice partner with Davis Cup, and said, well, the main guys, they make fun of the double specialists. I'll go back to Riley Opelka. And I said, well, it's too bad you think that way. But like say Nothing Major, the podcast, which is fun, those 4 guys, especially Query, but all of them, Query's to me is the star. They have a new podcast, and they're fun to listen to, but they just downplayed doubles because Nothing Major, no one's won a major, but Sox won Wimbledon twice. He won mixed with Melody O'Dean. How did that happen with her palm up serve? She had that magical run, I think, to the quarters. And hats off to her, a small kid, big, strong legs. But so I think he also has a US Open time. I'm going to guess he's got 4 doubles majors. But it doesn't count. But they make fun of themselves as self-deprecating, like who had the worst backhand volley. And Stevie Johnson, who was Mr. College Tennis, he obviously was top 30 in the world, so yeah, I could never hit a backhand. It just amazes me. But, with the very top players, I've noticed recently the Bryan brothers, I'm not on Instagram, but they're putting out a lot of videos, and obviously great ambassadors for the sport. But I would say that most of the really top players, they don't know tennis math when it comes down to technique. I'm not talking stats. I'm talking, the grip determines the angle of racket face determines the angle of racket path. And just the other day, I had a mom and a daughter said, listen, you're taking the day off, listen to this podcast, Tennis Math. Because I tell kids all the time, I ask them questions, they can't answer it. And I said, that's not a problem. But I said, I really can't have a high-level conversation with you unless you know this information. And that's all the way to the top. Like with commentators, that's really a sad thing that the American public, and it's the same around the world, is we really don't get to see doubles on TV. We certainly did. Like one of our students from way back when, and we certainly were connected with him in college and on tours. Austin Krajicek played the match with Rajiv Ram, and they played against Nadal at the Olympics. Nadal and Alcaraz, that was prime time. Or the world was tuned into that. But for the most part, doubles is not on TV. But I think also, too, mini tennis doubles, playing doubles with a foam ball. Kids are afraid of the ball, but they're not afraid of a foam ball. And, you don't want to have kids, be out there and be stupid and like they're swinging a fly swatter. I do think even pickleball, pickleball, I think if you can't beat them, join them. You see they're playing like a McEnroe, how he would play soft half volleys and bring the racket up and have the ball dip down at their feet. There's a lot of points being played like that in pickleball. And there's times for the reverse overhead and emergency shot. But I think that's an add-on. I think it's really sad that little kids are playing pickleball with no instruction. We're going to do that here with the new tennis directors. For pickleball, pickleball and tennis, come on. Talking about Sam Querrey, they're 90% the same. But there's people out there, they're experts now on flipping and flopping and dinking and doinking or whatever it's called. And it's like, come on, move your feet, use your large body parts. The late Bobby Curtis, Florida tried to do it. I don't know, tell us about Texas, but at one time, 15% of your ranking in juniors was based on doubles. One time in Florida, Bobby Curtis, 1 weekend a month, you could only play doubles. No one played. They took that weekend off.
Yeah.
They ever try that in Texas?
Well, when I was on the, USTA Texas boards years ago, I had proposed, we had what were called major zones. You remember, Steve? And
yeah.
So I was throwing out an idea that I thought they should play, two consecutive months of singles major zones, and then the third month, doubles and mixed doubles or mixed doubles major zone. But it's only doubles and or mixed doubles. This was long before the decline in doubles, and that it should count equally. The point value should count equally to the singles tournaments that were being held, and I thought that's how the calendar year really should go. So there would be every third one would have been exclusive to the doubles, and it was right after the time when they kind of shut off, because when Clayton Stanley and those guys were playing, they were playing full 2 out of 3 set match doubles.
Yeah. College tennis was that best 2 out of 3. Now they're playing to 6.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Taking the tennis out of tennis. One thing I liked about Texas, the 3-tier system, there were some positives. You had to qualify. And it's almost like you were regulated to what division you could play in and what age you could play in. And Florida was always crazy where I remember mom telling me that her son lost in the 16s. She said, I wish I put him in the 18s. I'm going to go hit my head against the wall. But for our listeners, there was regular, champ, and super champ. And kids would be, You super? I'm super. Did you soup up? I remember mom, a girl we worked with who went on and had a good college career. The mother said to me, well, my daughter is in supers. What are you going to do now? And I said, I'm going to get a pencil and paper, and I'm going to write that down as one of the top 10 dumbest questions I've ever been asked. And, Dennis Vandermeer, if you say something with a smile on your face, you can get away with it. But, let's go with a closing comment. Let's go with the young Ivan and Dave. We'll wrap it up. But just talking doubles. I think we do the same thing with our singles. People have asked us to circle back and talk about basics. What do you got, Ivan? Doubles,
I think
troubles.
A myth, especially from when I was younger, for doubles. Who takes the middle? If the ball comes right down the middle, who takes it? And it's, growing up, I was always told the forehand. Well, really, it'd be best whoever's closer to the net, because they have more potential volleying angles. And I believe that came about, that myth, you could say, is, players don't have very solid backhand volleys. They shy away from it. They can't really hit through the court. And so it's always, okay, forehand volleys, the dominant shot. So, okay, down the middle, forehand volley, but really whoever's closer.
Go ahead, Dave. That's good, Ivan.
Well, I think on doubles, I would tell people that are coaching the game to really encourage people to play doubles the way that historically doubles was meant to be played, really, where servers going in, people are looking to take over the net, enjoying the sport in a different manner. The way that it's being played today at club level, juniors, even into the collegiate ranks, it's more become a game of tic-tac-toe or at best checkers. And I feel like doubles played well is more chess. And yeah, I think that when you get out and play it that way, it'll also give you motivation to really understand how important it is to build the skill sets that you need. Sometimes that exposure will maybe humble you or motivate you to get out and do the necessary work on developing the read and react on an overhead and getting the technique down on your volley a little bit cleaner, getting the ability to drive a return. But it's also a game that's a little easier to play into your later years. As I've mounted my comeback here over the past couple of months, sure enough, I've been playing a lot of doubles, and then 10 days ago, I went out and played singles and instantly ripped my hamstring. Going alley to alley, and so it does allow you to play the sport. It seems a little bit longer into life and enjoy it, and it's just a lot of fun. I think that we as coaches have to do everything humanly possible to keep building the game of doubles in our programs. For the parent, one thing I always kind of jokingly say is, I think one of the reasons kids love doubles and they love things that are related to that. When we have these doubles only tournaments, there's joy in the kids on Friday as they're going out to the tournament. And then when they're going to a level 2 tournament, that'll have primarily singles and a little bit of back feet thing with doubles. Their joy isn't the same. And I always tell parents, if they can learn to, treat their kids' singles matches like doubles, because seldom do kids get in the backseat of a car and get reprimanded about their doubles match on the way home, from the parents, and get the verbal lecture that they get on the singles. And so I think, I don't know, I feel like doubles is just critical to the growth of the game on so many different levels. And I hope we can really, really bring it back to life.
With, so many things. On hamstrings, I do a lot of walking. If you walk and that's all you're doing, you're going to pull your hamstrings. Certainly as a tennis coach, you're wrapped up in other players' games, and you do spend a lot of time where you're walking from court to court. And with, I'd say this about when kids play doubles, their partner misses a shot, and right away they say, no problem, right here, we got it. They really bring their player up, but they don't talk to themselves that way when they play singles. We need to talk about T-shirts another time, but there should be a T-shirt that just says "Save Doubles." For me, I would think if we could do this, I remember Chris Evert saying when she came on the Pro Tour, she said no one really had good ground strokes. Both men and women, there was just a one-handed backhand, a lot of slice backhands, continental grip for what, they just didn't know. I was introduced to that. One grip for everything, I have a continental grip on the forehand. But the very first time I was at Wimbledon, I saw Billie Jean King play. Like, OMG. Oh my God. She was so good. It's like Arthur Ashe said, the old lady can play. And, but the ways she played, they played doubles, they played mixed, they played singles. Granted now, they're not playing 3 of the 4 majors on grass. But I just think that so many kids today in doubles as well, they're so much stronger from the backcourt. But let's be idealistic and be able to play both in the backcourt and in the forecourt, And that's what you have to do with doubles. I have to say this with drills or just bringing up a player, athletic, it needs to be technical and athletic. Then doubles makes it cooperative. But we don't do this drill very often. We have a young kid who's now 7. He's first started coming here. He was 5. And I know he's coming back here to visit in a few days. And, I just do this shortstop drill called the Billie Jean King, because her brother, Randy Muffet, was a pro baseball player. And Billie Jean King was a great shortstop, an athlete. And if a young kid's just taking tennis lessons, they're not going to become that athletic. If they're just playing backcourt tennis, they're not going to become that athletic. The movement, the challenge of doing this, that, and the other thing. But what I do is kid doesn't have a racket. I'll even do it as a tournament. You get, say, 12 kids, 18 kids, whatever you have. Say, all right, Billie Jean King shortstop tournament. And I stand by the net post and I just hit groundies with my tennis racket with tennis balls. And the kids can't catch. I'm not trying to be the bad guy, but come on, guys, you can't even catch. Going way back to doubles drills, initially kids don't play well enough. One side of the court should have rackets and the other side should be tossing and catching underhand and just doing it partner doubles. But listeners, thanks for hanging in there. I hope a few tennis nuggets, golden nuggets for the treasure chest. Thanks, Ivan. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
guys.
it was fun.
Doubles.
Save doubles.
Save doubles.
Save doubles.
Got to get some T-shirts. Save doubles. All right, Dave. Thank you, and everybody who
You bet.
Thanks, Dave.
Listen to the podcast. 252.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Adios.
Need to talk to him about the Dallas Stars. 252 in the books. Dallas Stars. They could win the whole thing. Stanley Cup. What do they say? The greatest trophy in tennis. Roger Federer. If there's any trophy you could win outside of tennis, what would it be? Stanley Cup. Yvonne, say doubles 3 times and we'll say adios.
Doubles, doubles, doubles.
Adios. Thanks, listeners.